All righty. Hello, everyone. My name is Ashley Holland. I am the one that you have been getting a ton of emails from. I am an assistant director for student engagement here at the university. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I've been at UVA for about 5 years now. And I'm going to let the other staff member that's here introduce himself, and then we'll introduce our speakers for tonight.
Hey everybody, my name is Deron Allen, he, him, his pronouns. I have been at UVA now 5 years. I'm one of the assistant deans of students and director of student engagement, and definitely happy, excited for you all to join us this evening.
Hi everybody, my name is Eileen Hernan. My pronouns are she, her. I graduated UVA in 2018. I was a double major in psych and elementary education. Right now, I am working as an elementary school teacher, but I was also abroad for a little while. So yeah, a couple different experiences there.
Hi guys, I'm Addison. I graduated, or my pronouns are she, her, hers. I graduated in May last year, 2020. This past year, I've been working as a data scientist at an AI firm, but will be transitioning to EY for consulting this summer.
Hi everyone, I'm Addison's roommate, Anna. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I also graduated in May 2020, and I was in engineering, a civil and environmental engineering major, and now I work at an environmental engineering firm out in Arlington.
Cool. Thanks, y'all. And so we will be, just want to give a heads up to the folks that are here in the session with us, that we will be recording tonight. So just as a heads up, we want to make this available to folks that couldn't attend the session tonight. So I guess we'll kick it off with a question for our grads. Talk to us about, how long did it take you to adjust to life post-grad, if you moved somewhere new, which all of you did, how did you integrate yourself into that setting? What did that look like?
Addison and Anna, do you have a preference of who goes first? Okay, I'll go. So after graduation, I moved to England. So that was a really big change. And it took a while to get it adjusted, as you can imagine. And I would say I was there for just about a year. And, there were times when I felt like really adjusted. I moved there in August, and by October, I was like, yeah, I live here now. This is my home now. And then I went home for Christmas. And when I came home in January, I was like back to square one. Like I felt completely unadjusted. I felt like I was brand new all over again. So I think that like progress happens, but it's not a straight line. And that's true no matter where you are. After moving back to the States, I moved to a brand new city. I'm now in Harrisonburg, which is, before moving to Harrisonburg, I had never even driven through Harrisonburg. So I got a job in a roommate sight unseen because I was just desperate to find something. And it was the same deal. Like after a few weeks, I felt like I was starting to get the hang of it. And then I would just some little things would happen and I'd realize, oh yeah, I don't actually know this place at all. Like my coworkers would say we were going to meet somewhere, and it's like I have no clue which direction that is, and so it was a lot of up and down, but it is all progress eventually. So if you're concerned about that when moving to a new place, just be patient with yourself because it takes longer than you might think, but it will happen.
Yeah, I think I definitely agree with that. It's not a linear process. We're in Arlington, and we moved this past August. And so, yeah, right at the height of the pandemic, the transition I think was really difficult because we ended our 4th year last spring also virtually and then started work virtually. And so for me, I didn't really even feel like there was this kind of okay, done with UVA and making this transition. We were kind of at home doing classes and then at home doing work. And so that kind of transition didn't feel as professional as it might have felt outside of a pandemic. And so I think that was really difficult. But yeah, just being patient with yourself, I think, is really important. And kind of, yeah, exactly like she said, that it's not linear, and there are going to be days where you feel like more adjusted and days where you're like, okay, like I don't feel like I've really made this transition at all. And so I think, I mean, I'm happy that we're doing this talk in general, because I really would have loved to hear people last year be like, okay, how did this feel for you? So yeah, I don't know, how's it?
Yes, I agree with everything you have both said so far. So we're in Arlington, and I was lucky I'd been in the DC Arlington area. I was here for last summer for an internship online, and then for an internship in person the year before. So that helped a little bit with the transition, that I felt that I was a little bit more familiar with the area. But I think it was a great introduction, but being somewhere for an internship, it does feel different than living here, and it doesn't feel as temporary, and getting to know other people outside of just your immediate contacts. I think that has been more difficult in the pandemic, but I agree that it's a process. And I also feel as restrictions are changing and lightening up, I feel as if I'm discovering the city in a new way, just with walking around. We spend a lot of time in parks and on picnics. So I guess I'm really excited for things to open up. We're near DC with museums and elements like that, but it's been great to get to know parts of the city that maybe I would have overlooked had we not been restricted to doing things outdoors. So that's something that has been kind of a silver lining, I guess. So I think that we'll continue to discover the city even after almost a year of being here.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. That's kind of nice. That's like, right? Like you said, a silver lining of like, oh, I've lived here, but I haven't really like seen it or explored the area. Thank you all. Let's see. How do you not have an identity crisis about not being a student anymore, and finally feel like you're an actual adult is the phrasing that was used in here. And kind of along those lines, how do you stop missing Charlottesville and the community that you had here?
There are days I still don't feel like a real adult. So I recently got engaged, and I kept telling everyone who will listen, I'm like, I'm not tall enough to get married. Like, I just feel like there's supposed to be this benchmark of things that like mean you're an adult now. But something that my friend shared with me my 4th year that I thought was very wise was that when we're kids, the only adults we interact with are our parents, our aunts and uncles, our friends' parents, our teachers. And so we don't really have an idea of adulthood. We have like this exposure to parenthood, but not exposure to adulthood. So I think like adulthood is what you want it to be. I think like a vague definition is when you are more or less taking care of your own responsibilities. And for some people that starts at age 12. For some people that doesn't start until you're 30. So just if you're getting started out of college, like just take on what you can, take on the bandwidth that you can, and gradually like that, maybe you'll start to feel like an adult. But I certainly don't every day. Like I said, I'm a teacher. So the first field trip I took my little 3rd graders on, I had this moment of panic on the bus, like, oh God, if something goes wrong, I'm the one in charge. I'm the one that has to solve the problem. And that's okay. Like you solve the problems. You have all that capability within you. It's just maybe you haven't had the opportunity to try it out yet. So that will happen. Sorry, I feel like there were more aspects to that question that I'm missing.
How do you cope with missing Charlottesville and your college friend community?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I won't lie. I graduated a year early. And so my friends were all like, because I was in a 5-year program. And so I did it in 4 years. And so a lot of my friends were still there for their 5th year of student teaching. And I was in England, and it was really hard. It's major FOMO. It's going to happen. And I think it's very easy to open up Facebook or Instagram and go down those self-pity rabbit holes where you just see all your friends together and you miss them, and it's hard. And the best thing to do is, I think, throw yourself into the community where you are and try to create a new community, and knowing like college was its own special, beautiful experience in this great place, Charlottesville. Like whether you're staying in Charlottesville or not, like my best friend, well after graduation, stayed in Charlottesville, just moved. And she said after we all graduated, like, it's not the same Charlottesville anyway. Like you are at work all day and you do different things in the evening. Eventually you feel like, no, this isn't really walking around the corner or doing stuff like that. It's not really for me anymore. Like you almost feel like you're invading on the kids' space now, which makes me sound old. So yeah, I think throwing yourself into the community where you are is the best way to kind of get over that FOMO or nostalgia for what you're missing in college or Charlottesville.
Okay, sorry, now I'm thinking about the second question. To the first question, I think with really any stage of life, I feel like you don't feel the change no matter what, if it's from college to working or working to, I guess, eventually retirement, that kind of thing. Like you feel the same throughout it, but it's just kind of the environment changes and your schedule changes. And so I think for me, the biggest difference was working like 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever your hours are. And it's just like a different schedule than college. You don't have like your Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like discussions, like having a random break from like 2 to 4, like that kind of thing. And so I think I really felt adult when like the day would end and then I wouldn't have homework too. Like, and then you get like your weekends back too, which I think is something that I'd like heard my parents say, but it was kind of just like, yeah, okay. Like I won't have to have like the Sunday scaries anymore. But I think that was something that I felt was probably the biggest thing, at least off the bat for me, that was noticeable when changing from college to working, is that you kind of have your hours, like no matter what they are, and it looks different for everyone depending on like your job and schedule and like where you are, but just like having those set hours where you go, you work, you do your thing, but then you also have all this time back, like in the evenings, you can, yeah, go for a walk with your roommates, or, you know, like have time to make dinner actually, which I feel like I was always just like grabbing roots and like going to the library. So that was like definitely a big difference. And it's nice to have your weekends where like you just have time to do, you know, like what you want to do. And so in terms of like the feeling adult, like, I don't know if I will ever feel adult, but I think the routine and the environment itself definitely for me were the biggest changes. And even if you're in Charlottesville, because we both have a lot of friends that are doing master's programs, and they said the same thing, where it's just very different hours and scheduling. And off of that, like for me, I mean, I miss UVA all the time, and I'm excited. It's nice that we're close in Roslyn. It's only like 2 hours from here. So if you're close, you can obviously like drive and, you know, like try and plan with your friends to meet up. But it does feel different when you go back to Eileen's point. It doesn't feel the same when the people aren't there. And so I think we idolize things that like in the past. And so I think it's really important to remember like the really great times that you had, and totally like it's fine to like miss your friends and miss the experiences you had, but that it isn't the same. And I guess maybe that's sad, but I think it's kind of nice because it's not really like you're missing out on something, because like you were there and like you got to experience that, and then like people are moving on, and regardless if those people are still in Charlottesville, it does feel different than it does as an undergrad. And so yeah, I mean, I think missing UVA definitely also comes in waves too, but you can, I don't know, it's nice to like, I guess with the pandemic also has been a new emphasis on Zoom. And so like having like Zoom happy hour with your friends, or like board game night, or we play Catan a lot, or, you know, like stuff like that, like a book club or something like that is a really good way to stay in touch with people. Or if you are close to them, you can try and meet up. Or like, I just had a reunion with my house from last year, and we've been planning it for forever because everyone's all over now. But like, you know, if you can kind of like keep that relationship up, I don't think it's as hard as we tell ourselves it is to maintain those relationships.
So I'll start with question one, with feeling like an adult, and also I think one of the phrases was avoiding an identity crisis. And I think my experience was maybe similar to Eileen in the sense of taking on more responsibility, and more than anything, having to make choices. Because one, graduating during the pandemic, I was supposed to go abroad. I was planning on going to grad school in Germany. And suddenly I was facing the decision of whether or not I wanted to go when I was going to be doing online school, and the experience was going to look a lot different. And I think that's one of the really scary and exciting things about adulthood is really you have the power to make your decisions and shape. And I don't know if an identity crisis in those types of situations is necessarily avoidable, and it's more just working through it, because there is going to be uncertainty, and you will have to choose between different paths and choose one and see how it goes. And so I think that was one of the main things, is just all of a sudden it seemed like the world is very open, and there are a lot of different paths you can go down, which is stressful and exciting. And I guess the other thing is, as far as with more responsibility, I was put on a site in Baltimore as an environmental engineer, and I was the only one from my company there. And so I was the liaison at a landfill and like heavy construction. And that was an experience that I didn't feel ready for, but that's another thing that, you know, realizing that you can do it is a really rewarding experience. And I'm only a year out of graduation, and I already feel more capable, because I think a lot of the feelings of a new environment are things that maybe I hadn't experienced since I was a first year in college, except on a different level, more responsibility. But I also realized that I've grown so much since I'm a first year that I am more prepared to take on these bigger responsibilities and bigger tasks. So I think that you're more ready for it than you realize, and in some ways you don't have a choice, so you just keep going. And then for keeping in touch with friends, I think random phone calls are just not being. And it's also interesting graduating during the pandemic that we didn't have the final goodbyes that we were expecting. There were people that I didn't see before spring break, and I have not seen since, because we didn't go back to school. And so I think not being afraid to reach out, and it does take effort, but I think that I found that, you know, if I'm willing to put in the first level of effort, that then people will meet me halfway. And then if they're not, then, you know, friendships change after school, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But not being afraid to reach out to the person that you haven't talked to in a while and just say, hey, I'm thinking about you. Are you free for a call anytime?
Thank you all. That was very insightful and thoughtful, and all of the things, and just some really good nuggets. So thank you. So shifting gears a little bit, I guess, how have you all tried to make friends and meet people post-grad? I know it probably will look different as we move through the rest of this year and things open up and people are vaccinated and all the things, but, you know, and along those lines, like, how do you make work friends, and do you hang out with people from work, and how do you do that and keep it professional so it doesn't get messy? What has that looked like for y'all?
So, like I said, I moved to Harrisonburg not knowing anybody, and I applied for this job. And when I was, after the principal had offered me the job, I asked for a few days, which I highly recommend. Like, ask for some time, and you can just phrase it as, I really want to make this decision very carefully, or I want to like give myself some time to understand all of the details of this position. Is it okay if I have 24 hours to think about it, or 48 hours or whatever? Like I said, I was desperate for a job and I still did that. And like, that's okay. They're not going to snatch back their offer and say, no, you're not hired anymore. So anyway, when I was emailing the principal, I asked if I could be put in touch with one of the like current new teachers there at the school, just to bounce questions off of, which I also recommend if you're offered a job, like ask to be put in touch with some of the like young professionals that work there. And like me and that girl did not end up becoming like best friends or anything, but she said, my roommate is moving out. Do you need a place to live? And so, okay, now I have a place to live, check. And she was able to introduce me to some people. She was also like at school with me and could help me navigate that. And so it was really nice, kind of like how first year, you're not necessarily like best friends with the people you meet the first couple of days of first year at UVA, but they're your bridge. They get you to the people that you're going to be closer with. And in terms of like work friends, I'm very close with my coworkers. Most of my social circle are people that I work with. I like it that way. I think teaching is a very collaborative profession. So you want to be on the same page and you want to be on really good terms with your coworkers. That's not to say that you have to be friends with your coworkers in teaching or any profession. You're going to click with some people and some people you're not. What is kind of an interesting feeling is when making friends in a new city, it almost feels a little bit like dating. Like, should I text them? Am I being too eager if I reach out to them? They probably don't want to go get drinks with me. But have courage because they probably do want to go get drinks with you. They probably do want to get to know you. So if there's someone that you're thinking, they seem cool, I'd like to get to know them better, like just reach out. And in doing that more, you'll A, become more comfortable with it, and B, like it grows. So like if I want to make friends with this one work friend, oh, well, she has friends that from like this other walk of her life that I would have never met on my own, but now I'm hanging out with them too. And it multiplies in that way. So it'll happen. It's kind of a slow start and it's kind of an awkward start, but it does happen.
Yeah, I think for Anna and I, obviously the one nice thing is we live with UVA people. And so in terms of like immediate community, we have our two other housemates as well, both graduated the same year as us from UVA. And so it was nice coming in right off the bat. And so like, if there are people from UVA or even like friends of friends, you can like find housing with. I know that's not going to happen for everyone, but that's been really great to build those friendships, because I was close with Anna during college, but not as close with our other two roommates. And so it's been really great to kind of grow those friendships in our immediate household. I'm sure Anna will also mention this, but we joined a kickball team. There have been, especially as things have started to open up more, and in DC, as I'm sure lots of other cities or towns or wherever you end up will have kind of like an outreach, like activities, organizations page. And so one of our housemates found it and was like, hey, this could be super fun. And we didn't know anyone else on the team, but we're like, you know what, it'll be great. We'll go out there. Like, we're not the most athletic, but like, we'll just give it a try. And so that's been really fun. It's just once a week on Sundays, and not having to go to the library. We have our Sundays. So that's been really nice. We also, one of my roommates and I signed up for a softball team. So given that a go. And so that's been really fun. And so highly recommend, even if you're like, I'm terrible at sports, like I don't want to do this, or if there's other like a book club or like a running club, or I don't know, some like any kind of activity that you're interested in, I'm sure that there's some kind of club for that. And so definitely recommend like looking at that. That's been a really great way. But in terms of work for me, it was actually really hard because my team is based in California. And so they're all Pacific time. And so it definitely felt very weird in terms of like not working with people that were in my time zone and not like in the same room like at UVA. And so I think one way that we tried to bridge that, and my team leader did a really great job of bringing people in. And that is the kind of fun part about being the new person, is everyone's like, okay, like this person's new, like we've gone out, you know, like let's like message them and like get to know them. And so that was really nice. But we ended up doing things on like every Monday. I don't know if you guys have played like Jackbox games, but like you can do them virtually. And so we would have like a little team, like just before like our bigger meeting, we'd like play a game of that. And so even things like that, or like happy hour, like virtual happy hours, that kind of thing, definitely isn't the same as being in person. And it's harder to build that community that way, but it's still nice to like have that non-work related conversation with people and to try and get to know them, because it definitely has been weird. And that was my reason for trying to get another job here, is that my new job will be in the city. And so I'm really excited to hopefully meet people in person, or at least talk to people virtually who are also in the same area. So because I think that would be a great way to build community. But it definitely I felt it a lot, like the big difference between having that immediate community at UVA, like running into people on, like when you're walking places and walking here and be like, I don't know anyone. And so definitely felt that a lot. And so like, if you feel that, I don't know, it does feel kind of lonely, but there are lots of ways to bridge that, or to make community in places in your new place.
Well, Addison already talked about her kickball team, so I won't. Also, she's not giving herself enough credit. She is athletic. But another thing, and Addison touched on this a little bit, that I've enjoyed, and less so this year because of the pandemic, but when I was in DC the summer before, looking at those community pages that she mentioned, there are probably email listservs that you can find. An example for DC is called 730 DC, and they gather community events that are going on and send out an email every day. Or in the Washington Post, there's the Going Out Guide, and they have community events that are going on throughout the weekend. So there will probably, if you're in a bigger city, there's probably going to be resources like that, of the community level events that are going on that are fun to participate in. And then meeting friends, similar to what Eileen was saying about reaching out to one person and seeing how that network can grow, and meeting a friend of a friend, maybe reaching out, because one of the things that is exciting about moving to DC, there are a lot of UVA people, but you're also excited to meet people that didn't go to UVA. And so you might have a connection to a friend who's a couple years older than you that you reach out to, and they've had a longer time to be established in the city. And so they invite you to a thing with their friends, and you meet people that way. As far as work friends, I did not join a company that has lots of young employees coming in through cohorts. So that has been a challenge for me. In all honesty, I don't have a lot of coworkers that I'm necessarily friends with outside of work, because there's not as many people my age, and that's just the truth of it. And so it's going to be different, I think, for everyone. I also know people that all of their best friends are from work. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. I was chuckling really hard when Eileen was talking about finding friends, and it's kind of like dating, because like it really is, and like feeling awkward about trying to put yourself out there and all the things. And when I moved to Charlottesville, I was fresh out of grad school. I was in my mid-20s. I was like, how do you make friends? How do you do this? And so I joined like a kickball league in Charlottesville and met some really great people. So plug in a couple of things. Let's see. How do you all balance all of the adult things? So work, social life, if you're doing anything from like an exercise perspective, sleeping, all of those things. How do you all balance that? What do you do in terms of like meal planning? What does that look like?
It's hard to balance all these things. So when I first moved to Harrisonburg and was starting my new job, I was really bad about a work-life balance. I would get to school at 7 a.m. and I'd stay till 6:30, 7 p.m. And first of all, don't do that, because you're not paid overtime if you're a salaried employee. So honor your time and your value, and your time is valuable. And also, if you're anything like me, the longer you like sit in your work, the more work you create for yourself. You think of more things that you could be doing, and so you add it to your list and you do those. So I encourage everybody who is able to like give themselves a hard stop deadline in the afternoon or evening. And one way that I did that, which kind of ties into the like self-care exercise stuff, I joined a gym that had a 5:30 yoga class or Zumba class every night. And so I would like sign myself up for those classes, and you had to book your spot because the exercise room was only so big. And if you did something like 3 no-shows, you were like blocked from booking for a few weeks. Like it's kind of a strict gym. But that was really good for me because it's like, okay, I have to leave at 5:15 if I'm not going to be punished by my gym. So then it was like a hard deadline. And then I had to go, like I had somewhere to go where I could move and exercise and just clear my head from the day, which was great. So depending on COVID restrictions and like your comfort level with stuff like that, I would recommend just something firm, like in the evening where you can hold yourself accountable to a time when you are stopping work. Because I think UVA has a culture of being a workaholic, work hard, play hard and everything. And you don't have to take that culture into your professional life. It's okay to have a balance, have more of a balance. Balancing other responsibilities is hard. It's when you're working all day, like I think Addison had touched on this earlier, you don't have those like awkward or random 2-hour chunks of the day where you don't have class. And so I was thinking like, oh, when can I go to the doctor? I work all day and the doctor's office closes at 5. When do grownups go to the doctor? And like, you take a sick day to go to the doctor. So you just have to, it's an adjustment, getting used to having your days kind of booked up. So you learn to work around that. And you can, make phone calls in the morning or the evening or on your lunch hour. And you can make use of that time to handle like things that need to be done during business hours. But yeah, it's hard. Meal planning, something that I recently got into, and it's great. It does take a lot of planning, as the name suggests. So I would recommend taking it just a couple recipes at a time. If you know, okay, I have 3 recipes that I know how to make them, I know what ingredients I need, just like cook double batches of those for a while and, bag up your leftovers to eat for lunch the next day. And then as you find more time and get adjusted to your new work schedule, you can start to add in a few more recipes here and there and make plans like that. I think it works differently for everybody, but I think having a plan is really nice because it's very easy after a long work day to come home at 5:30, 6, whenever, and I'm too tired to make dinner. I'll just, if you're me, you heat up a frozen pizza or you stop at McDonald's on the way home, and that's not healthy. And I think it takes a toll on your mental health to do that consistently also.
Yeah, I think like Eileen said, it's definitely important to set those boundaries for yourself. I know personally, I had a harder time with cutting off for a lunch break. I'd be like, oh, I can just make lunch super quick and take it to my desk and I can just work and eat. Like I'll save time, like it'll be great. And I think that ended up being really harmful because I would get so stressed and not know when to take a break. And I think I also had this idea of my coworkers that they were doing the same thing, or that they were just like sitting down and working nonstop and like being super efficient. And I think it's really important to realize that they're also humans and they want to take lunch breaks and want to take an hour to go to the doctor and want to see their kids or whatever, like that kind of thing. Like they're also trying to live their lives. And so realizing that it's not harmful it's helpful to like take a break for yourself or cut yourself off at a certain time, or just to maintain that balance. Because then ultimately, I think I realized the work I was doing when I was working was so much better because I had taken that 30 minutes to an hour, however long it is, to eat lunch and not look at my screen or go for a walk or that kind of thing. And so I definitely recommend that. And it's also weird making that time. I'd never really had to do that before. And so I think scheduling that was definitely something new, but I found has been really helpful in terms of being productive as well. In terms of meal planning, I'm still trying to figure it out. Anna's really good at it, so I'm excited to hear what she says about this, but I kind of will throw stuff together. Like I said, once I started taking lunch breaks, it became easier, but I also found it's kind of fun to kind of reward yourself, be like, okay, I'm going to take a step away from my computer and I'm going to walk someplace new. And like, we have a really great falafel place near us. And so like discovering that or walking to it's like a good time to, it's kind of like a reward for yourself for like taking a break and getting outside too. So yeah, still working on the meal planning thing, just going to be honest, I'm not quite there yet, but it's a work in progress. But definitely recommend making breaks for yourself. I think just overall, it'll help your routine, like help your work, and you'll just be happier, I think.
Well, I'm still working on my meal planning too, but my strategy is just to, we have some background noise. We wanted to do this in front of the UVA, but we're in our kitchen. But I usually just like write down the meals that I'm going to do for that week. And then I build my grocery list off of that so that when I'm going to the grocery store, I'm like, not like, oh, what do I need? And so it makes grocery store, I think, more efficient and enjoyable. And then I have all the ingredients that I need for my meals that week. And I would say eating out is fun. It's nice. It's like good to reward yourself. But I always struggle that when I eat out, I then don't have lunch for the next day. And so cooking is maybe not always the more fun option. But maybe you can afford to eat out for dinner and lunch, but I think cooking is a great way to save money and to kind of control that element. It is no fun to not have lunch for the next day. So I try to cook as much as possible. But as far as other things, I don't think either of you mentioned sleep. And maybe it's easier to have a better sleep routine because I'm not commuting right now. I'm not going into the office. And so I do have some extra hours in that time, but I find that I'm more efficient with working and enjoy myself much more if I stick to a more rigid time, a sleep schedule, and that I'm actually going to bed, getting 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And then I might have shifting time. Maybe I stayed up a lot at night in college, but your schedule is a little bit different after college. So shifting, going to bed a little bit earlier, and then I get maybe an hour before work that I can get up and I can either work out or I can read or just make a nice breakfast, have some personal time at a different point in the day than I'm used to.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. So I have a few more questions on my list, but I did want to open it up to the participants in the session and see if anyone had any questions that they felt hadn't been asked that they really would like an answer to. And I think you all can unmute yourselves. Yes. Or if you want to raise your hands, if you're not uncomfortable just unmuting, or throw it in the chat, however you all want to ask a question is fine by me. Okay, I gave it 10 seconds. What, I really liked this question. What were, oh, sorry. Mackenzie, did you want to say something or ask something? Okay. What was the least expected challenge for you all after leaving college? Like something that you were not expecting to be difficult that was?
not to like cut it in front of Eileen, I think just honestly, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but feeling lonely wasn't something I expected as much. And like, I think just in the sense that like at UVA, you walk to the library, you walk to class, and you just, even if you don't like stop and talk, you like see very familiar faces. And so I think that was definitely strange at first coming here and walking around. And like I said earlier, not knowing anyone and not having as much like direct communication. And I think it made me realize that, and this I probably should have realized before, but having quality of friendship is so much more important than quantity. And so, and I think just being at UVA, it's such a social culture too. And like people, I found people to be like very friendly, and I don't know, like stopping to sit on the lawn with people or like getting coffee is, I think like was really nice. And so coming here, I found that to be something that was a challenge that I didn't quite expect. But that being said, there also are ways to like fix that. I mean, we talked about those, but don't feel like you're isolated. Don't feel like you're alone in that feeling of loneliness, and that's like very normal. And I never really heard anyone say that. And so I felt very alone in that, because I was like, well, other people like on Instagram seem to be having a great time, or, you know, like doing this. And so I was like, wow, I'm the only one that's feeling like that. And no one had ever really been like, yeah, it's definitely an adjustment post grad. And there are avenues to fix that, like for sure. But I think right off the bat, that was something I felt that I was like, oh, I wasn't really expecting this, like moving to a new place as much as I felt it. And just that it is very different than college in that way. So yeah, I think that was something I wish someone had been like, you know what, this is normal. Like, you're totally fine. Like, it's going to work out. But like, I feel like that would have been nice to hear coming in that I wasn't expecting.
I really agree. Sorry, my dogs are going nuts, but so I think Addison had talked about like getting your weekends back, and that is a blessing now in my life, but it was a curse at first because I didn't know a whole lot of people when I first moved here, and I didn't know how to like keep myself busy in a non-work way. And so I remember this one Saturday, I think I'd been in Harrisonburg maybe 2 weeks, and I didn't want to like just go to school and do work. I wanted to have a Saturday that I enjoyed, and I didn't know what to do. And so I like went to the library and got a book, and just like very uncomfortably like sat in my room with this like roommate that I don't really know, who's like I don't even know if she was home, but I just like remember feeling like, okay, I shouldn't sit in the living room, because like if she comes home, I don't really want to invade her space or anything. So I'll go sit in my room, I'll just read this book. And it was incredibly isolating, and it felt like I was doing something wrong. Like I was failing at being like a young, fun 20 something. And like, I don't know how, like kind of, we touched on how, but like eventually like that just stopped happening. Like it got better. I had things to do on Saturdays. I had friends to call and hang out with. And, I feel more confident in my social life and in myself now. But that was unexpected, because I was really looking forward to having like work-free weekends. And then it became I'm twiddling my thumbs, feeling out of place a little bit, but it does get better.
I would agree with both those sentiments, but in definitely that feeling of loneliness. But I'll focus on something else for my answer. I guess just graduating without a plan, which was not what I was expecting to do. The pandemic, as I mentioned, kind of switched up my plans. But I think that people talk about it a little bit. Your fourth year is interesting because you have people at all parts of the job in grad school search. You have people that day one, they know what they're doing. They know where they're going to work next year. They know what they want to do. And so I think dealing with that level of uncertainty, because I just didn't think I would graduate college and not know what I was going to be doing in the next 2 months, let alone the next year. And so I think that even without a pandemic, that is a really common thing, is that people don't necessarily have everything, their job lined up. I know plenty of people from the year above me too, not just the people my year who graduated in the pandemic, that don't know quite what they're going to do when they graduate. And I think that, I mean, looking for a job, I ended up going back to the company that I had an internship with, but you do realizing like you do know your professors, you have people that you probably know a few years older than you that you can reach out to and just to talk to. And I was really surprised with how many people were able to reach out on my behalf or at least, or in a situation they might know that this company is hiring, even though they don't have anything listed on their page, that they're looking for someone or they're opening to hiring. So I think if you're struggling to figure out your post-grad plans, talking to people within your network, even if it feels a little bit awkward, that people were more willing to help than I expected. But dealing with that uncertainty was a really big challenge for me.
Just such gems. Yeah, I think you all made really good points, like the isolation and the loneliness and feeling like you should be doing this or you should be doing that. Like there is no life plan. I graduated from college and didn't have a job lined up and didn't get a job until like August. And look at me now. So it's okay. I think all of that to say is that there is no like right or wrong way necessarily to do things. So thank you all for sharing that. How do you all navigate setbacks that you have faced, either like navigating post-grad life or, in your career? If you're not loving, I don't know if anybody has made a shift in career, anybody plans to, but, maybe how have you all navigated that? Obviously, Anna had to like big time shift, but before getting the job, but kind of how do you all manage that and navigate that?
This is funny because a couple weeks ago, I messaged Ashley. I was like, hey, I think I'm thinking of leaving teaching. I need to talk to you about this. And so like, that's what I did. I'm going to stay where I am right now. Like I didn't make any firm decisions, but I'm not 100% wed to my career right now. And I think that's okay. And a few weeks ago when I was feeling a big sense of urgency and like this, a little bit of an identity crisis of what I wanted to do professionally, I just like, I reached out to Ashley, who was someone who I had worked with when I was in college and who I felt like I had a good relationship, someone who could offer some advice, and reached back to like people that I had worked for before, like just seeing if they would be potentially willing to be a reference for me if it was ever needed. And again, like that feels really scary to do, but the theme of the past few questions seems to be like people want to help you. They're more willing to help than you might think. So reach out to the people that you know, even if you feel like we're not on that level yet. Like you probably are. I know that if somebody I kind of know, like reached out to me asking a few questions about work or any other aspect of life, like I would respond. It's not very hard to help people. And so I think people are willing to do it. You don't have to stick with the job that you start when you graduate. Most people don't. Most people change jobs a lot in their 20s and then continue through, for beyond. So it's okay to, I don't know, not feel particularly fulfilled or set in the profession that you have. And I think that the wisest thing to do is just maybe don't make any huge changes unless you have like an exit strategy. So maybe that strategy is reaching out to people that you know to just like reaffirm that network a little bit so that you have more confidence moving into a new job. But like, don't be reckless, but also don't be afraid to make those changes and embrace those changes, because if you feel like there's something better for you out there, there probably is.
Yeah, I think to touch on like one thing Eileen said, in terms of setbacks, I think of like work with, I know, thinking that like maybe like onboarding was gonna like teach me everything I needed to know starting a new job. And then like I start the actual work and I'm like, oh my gosh, I kind of have questions about this. And the one thing with, and I mean, some jobs are in person now, but I think a lot are still virtually. It does feel a lot more, I don't know, a lot more weight on it when you have to like message someone on Zoom instead of just like being able to like walk over to their desk and be like, hey, like I was struggling with this. So definitely, I think learning that it's totally fine to message someone and be like, hey, like I'm struggling with this, you know, like if you could point me in the right direction, and not taking that criticism personally, that, you know, like ultimately like your team is working towards the same goal. And so they're there to help you, and that it might feel a little bit more stressful having to like Slack someone or message them on Teams, but you know, they're doing the same thing you are. Like they're sitting at their desk home working, and like they get a message. I don't know, that realizing people are very willing to help, and that you're not going to learn everything in onboarding. And when you actually start the work, that you're going to have questions, and just, yeah, not being afraid to ask those questions when it does feel a little bit more serious, when you can't just like go up to them during a coffee break and be like, hey, you know, like I'm kind of struggling with this. And so, yeah, I think that took me a bit to like figure out, but afterwards I've just been like so much less stressed. So I feel like the sooner you can figure that out, the better. And also with in terms of like setbacks, also being able to take a break from your desk, because it's hard when work and home are so integrated that you feel like you're trapped. And so whether that's, like I said, taking a walk outside or taking a coffee break in your own kitchen, like just something, even if it's like 5 minutes, just to like take a step back and be like, okay, like got this, it's going to be good. It feels harder to do when you're literally, I sleep 5 feet from where I work. And so it just feels like very much the same. And so I think in terms of setbacks, it's important to be able to also like give yourself that time to like, you know, like reevaluate, come to it with like a fresh mind, like fresh eyes. And that took me a little bit too with work from home to learn.
That also really resonates with me, and also just work in general. We've all been going to school for a very long time. So by the end of it, I knew how to, you know, pass the class, but also when I fail a test, that I know how to react to that. I know kind of when I would make mistakes in school, how I should respond to those types of mistakes. Whereas in work, all of a sudden, you're going to make mistakes. And because it's, as Addison said, it's a learning process, but all of a sudden I type something in, you know, I send something in an email to a client that isn't quite correct. Well, I don't know what level of mistake that is. So I don't know how I should respond. And so I think just being kind to yourself in those types of situations, I think I have more ahead of me, but I've already learned so much. And that it's what Addison was saying, you don't learn everything in onboarding, and learning how to perform in a job is a new type of education. And just giving yourself a little bit of grace with that, I think is really important.
Awesome. Thanks, y'all. So before we conclude our time together, I want to say thank you to Eileen and Addison and Anna for being here and for giving us their time. Lots of great things. I am going to post a link for a survey for folks that have been in attendance to give us feedback. And that is also how we will get the names for folks for the drawing for the various gift cards, and then the final drawing for the diploma frame. So please complete the survey so that we can reward you all. We will notify winners for the drawing for next week. And then if any, obviously I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.